Good day, everybody. I hope that you are well, and I also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, we'll be doing our grade 4 English lesson on addresses. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English Language Arts, grade 4, grade 4, and then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of addresses. All right, so we said our chapter is addresses. Our subject is English Language Arts. Grade 4. And the lessons that we are focusing on today under the chapter of addresses is formatting street addresses. All right, so when it comes to addresses, right, your street address is basically where you live. That is your street address or basically your address. And there's a specific way that you need to write your address, especially if you want to either send or receive messages or let's say letters. Nowadays it is I highly doubt a lot of people are even sending letters. Some people I'm sure never even went to their mailbox, especially like if you're in grade 4, then I'm sure like some of you have never even gone to the mailbox, never seen mail coming. Because nowadays everything is so remote, or everything is so, it's technology driven to an extent that even letters are being sent either by email, or if it is personal, um, and more friendly, and then things are being sent via WhatsApp, or any form of social media, right? But still, when you either write your address because you want somebody to either send you a mail, right? And then there's a certain way in which you need to write your addresses. And when addressing personal correspondence, we need to be sure to use the correct format as well as the punctuations when it comes to um, our addresses, right? All right, so it says when addressing personal correspondence, which means that this is now like a correspondence between you and another person. Um, when it comes to that, like the communication, let's say in the form of sending either letters or so on, then you need to be sure to use the correct formatting as well as the punctuations when it comes to writing a letter, right? And specifically when it comes to your address. Because remember, if somebody needs to send you a mail, right, a letter specifically, and then you need to have your correct details because especially like let's say maybe if we look at this address Kensington, I'm not sure if it's county or city, um there is lots of different addresses that has the same street name, right? And that is why you need to put the city, you need to put the, we call it our postal code within my country, which is your zip code, which you will call it. You need to have all those details in place and correctly so that somebody can send you the correct letter, the correct details, the correct stuff, right? So you're going to start by, for example, first adding your name and surname. So you're going to either be Mr. Or Miss Mm. So Mr. Patrick Kelly, for example, so this will be your name, or the person that you're sending it to, you'll have the name and surname. That is on the first line, right? Then the second one, right? This is not the second line. You will have your home address, like your house number. I'm going to put the hashtag for house number, right? As well as the street address. This is the name of the street that you live in, right? And remember, your addresses needs to be written in capital letter. All right. And then on the last line or the third line, right? You need to write the city. So the name of the city that you live in, right? And then you also need to write the state that you live in, but the state needs to be abbreviated. So you can abbreviate your state. And once you abbreviate your state, and then it needs to be capitalized, right? Once you have written down your city, your state abbreviated, and then you need to write the zip code. Like I said, in my country, we call it the postal code. So the zip code, right? So you need to capitalize the abbreviated um, city, right? The state that needs to be abbreviated. You need to capitalize this. Then we have our city over here, starts with the capital letter. Our street address or the street name also starts with a capital letter, right? So that is how we write and or you basically giving details when it comes to some form of correspondence, right? So you have your name, surname, we have the house number, the street address, we have the city, comma, then we have the state, which is abbreviated and both capitalized, and then we have the zip code. All right. So once again, right, if we personalize the correspondence when writing an address, right, we say that you need to be sure to write the correct information, right, when it comes to either sending letters to and from. I'm going to specifically make mention of sending letters. Actually, not even letters nowadays. Let's think of online shopping, right? When you do online shopping, and then you're going to have to put in your correct address because the let's say your package or whatever that you bought online needs to basically be sent or dropped off at your correct address, right? So once again, on the first line, we need to write your name and surname. So whether you are sending a package to someone or you are receiving a package from someone, on the first line, you're going to write your name and surname. It's being sent to Nadine. On the second line, right, you're going to write your street address, which is the name, the street, the house number, as well as the street name. So it's street, road, or however you call it um in your um in your city that you live in. You need to capitalize it. Do not forget to capitalize your address. Remember, when you write your address, you need to start with a capital letter. So be sure to capitalize it. And you need to include the periods where needed, especially after abbreviations. On the third line, right, of writing an address, you need to write the city that you live in. So remember, in the second line, we wrote the street address, which is the house number as well as the road name or the street name. Now we need to write the city that we live in. Once you have written down the city in the third line, then next to that, you're going to write a comma and then you're going to abbreviate. It says state abbreviation, abbreviate the state that you live in, and that is going to be capitalized. Both of that two words that you abbreviate. And then lastly, still on the third line, we're going to write our zip code. And the zip code is important, right? Because it's like I made mention, there might be quite a few Kensington roads, Kensington streets, Kensington avenues, right? Within, let's say, within your country or within your state, right? Or within your province. And then what you can do is the zip code will then basically directly to you will basically direct you specifically to either your city or to even your suburb that you live in. And be sure to always capitalize the city, right? And both letters of the state abbreviation. Add a comma after the city. All right. So think of, let's say, okay, let me do this. I'm going to just move this to the side, but I'm still going to keep this here. Okay. So now we're going to have to write our address. I'm not saying that you need to specifically write your address because that is personal information, but we are going to, let's say, write a specific address, not necessarily your own one, but we're just going to come up with an address just for the sake of an example or for the sake of practice, right? All right. So when we write you're gonna fake a name, right? So when you fake a name, and then you're going to, for example, you can either put your own name and surname if you want to, right? If you're okay with that, or we can just fake the name and surname because we are going to write an address now that is in line with all the steps that we're going to have to follow, but not putting our own personal details there, right? So, which means that we're going to go on the first line. It says write recipient's name. So, you're going to write your name and surname, right? So, since all of you know my name, so I'm going to start with Miss Nadine, and I'm going to come up with my own surname, like a surname. It's not my surname, right? So Miss Nadine Smith, that is going to be on the first line, meaning that whenever we do some form of correspondence, I do online shopping or vice versa, that is the name that's going to be on the delivery box, whether I'm sending something or I'm receiving something, right? We said on the second line, we need to write our street address. So we need to write the house number. Let's put the house number as number 51, right? And the street name, the 51, let's say, Camelot Avenue. I'm gonna put Camelot Avenue and full stop. Then they said on the third line, or let's say on the second line, right? We have our, like we said, on the second line, we have our street address. Now on the third line, we have the city, right? So the city that I live in is called Cape Town. You need to also add your comma. The state, we don't say state, we either say province, or let's say my province, right? So my province is in Western Cape, so I would say WC for Western Cape, because in my country we say province, not state. And then we put our postal code, which is called your zip code, and our postal code we would, for example, say 7764, right? That is a specific address, right? That is the format that we also need to follow. And that is, like I say, whether you are either receiving something or whether you are sending something, whether you're receiving a package or you're sending a package, right? You need to get the correct address, because the correct address will then determine if the package or letter or something is being sent to the correct person, or if it's being received to the correct door. Let's say you are receiving it, or is it literally coming to you at your doorstep, for example. Right? All right. So now let's go to aplusstudents.ca, and that is where we are going to now continue with our tutorial lesson, which is to format street addresses, right? So we're going to look at a few street addresses, right? And it says format and punctuate the address correctly by fixing one error. So within this address, or the example address that is given to us, right? Or let's say an activity that is given to us, there is one error that we're gonna have to fix um within that address. All right, the first one says Mr. and Mrs. Tran, right? And that is correct, because on the first line we have the recipient, who it is going to or who is receiving the package, right? And then the second one says 4753 Hanover Lane, right? And that is actually also correct, because um we need to, for example, capitalize Hanover, H for Hanover, and Lane, and we add our period after that. And then we need to also add our city, which is correct. followed by a comma, capitalize the abbreviated state or state abbreviation and our zip code. So I don't see what the error is within the sentence. All right, here by Bobby Duncan, we can just say Mr. Bobby Duncan, but you can put Mr. or not put the Mr. at all. 24 Devon Circle, Los Angeles, CA, as well as our zip code. Right? All right. If we look at this one, it says Steve Whittaker. If we already look at this first one, here they say we must correct or fix two error. If we look at the first error, we can already say that Steve is the error because Steve needs to be capitalized. Then the street or address is 1245 Serenity Boulevard. And here needs to be a period after that one. Our city is Lady Lake. The state is FL. And then our zip code. Right? So that is basically how we need to, let's say, either write as well as format our addresses, right? Your punctuation marks needs to be correct. You need to go on to you need to put the correct capital letters where needed. You need to put the correct periods where needed. You need to put the correct abbreviations also where needed. And remember that you always need to correct your addresses according to the steps that we had mentioned. By the first line needs to be the recipient's name. You can decide to put Mr. or Mrs. if you want to, or you can just put your name and your surname. The second line would be your street address, which is your house number as well as the street name, the road name, and period. And then the third line is our city, followed by a comma, the state abbreviation, which is both capitalized as well as our zip code. All right, so now we're going to our test where we are going to be formatting street addresses. So it says format and punctuate the street address correctly by fixing the two errors. Right? So we're gonna have to fix two errors within these addresses. It's either the option one or option two. Option one says Jenny Huffman, 4942 Newberry Drive, period. Then we have a lowercase, which is Toppy TX 78883, or in the second option, we need to say which one is correct. So option one is correct or option two? All right, and if we were to choose the correct address, right, then yes, we will choose option two. Because option one, there by Topley and TX, right, it is lower cases, which means that that is incorrect. So we'll go with second option. So well done. All right, we're looking at the second one where we need to format and punctuate the address correctly by fixing three errors. And it says that it's either option one or option two, which is Tyler Harvey, our street address, as well as our city, state, which is abbreviated, and our zip code. So which one is correct? Remember, all punctuations need to be correct, where our periods are, where our capital letters are, where our commas are. All right, then if we were to select the correct option, then yes, we will go with option 2, right? Because option 1, the by Lawrence Street is correct, is incorrect, as well as by the state abbreviation is incorrect. All right, well done. Let's go to the third one, right? We're gonna have to format and punctuate the address correctly by fixing two errors within this addresses. So is it option 1 or option 2? All right, and if we were to fix the two errors that we find within our addresses, then we are going to stick to option 2. Because the two errors that we have in option 1 is the capitalizing of the city, right? And no comma after the city. So option 2 is correct. Well done. All right, we're going to the next one. We need to format and punctuate the address correctly by fixing the two errors. Option 1 or option 2. All right, and if we were to format and punctuate our address correctly by fixing the two errors, then yes, we will choose option 2, because the error that we find in option 1 is Steve is not capitalized, and next to the street name, we did not put our period after BLVD, right? So option 2 is correct. Well done. The next one, we need to format and punctuate the addresses correctly by fixing three errors. Three errors. All right, and if we were to choose our correct um, address, right, by identifying also the three addresses, our three areas, the correct one is option two, right? The errors that we find in option one is miss is not capitalized, and also next to the city, which is mini, there's no comma, and also the state abbreviation is not capitalized. Remember, we said that both letters needs to be capitalized when it comes to the state abbreviation. So option two is correct. Well done. Option two again is correct. We need to format and punctuate the address correctly by fixing two errors that we will find either in option one or in option two. If you find any errors, then it means that that is not the correct one. There should be no errors. So option one or option two. Remember, if you find any errors in one of the options, then it is not it's not the correct one because there should be no errors. All right, and if we were to choose the correct address, right, with no errors or no punctuated errors, right, then we would go with option two again, right? Because the errors that we find in option one is capital letter by fifth. Fifth is not capitalized by Fifth Street, right? And next to the city Bronx, right, you need to add a comma. So next to Bronx needs to be a comma. And that is the two errors in option one that we have identified. So which means that our correct address would be option two. Again, so well done. Option two is correct. We need to fix one error. We need to only find and fix one error. It says option one or option two. Which one is correct with no errors? Because there where we find the error, that one is not correct. So we need to choose either option one or option two. All right. Yes, option two is correct again. So again, and if we were to identify our one error in option one, And then our error is here after the state abbreviation. They added the comma. There should be no comma after the state abbreviation, right? So option two is correct again. So well done. Yes, the comma shouldn't have been there. We need to select one error. We need to correct the one error actually, right? Either in option one or in option two. We need to say which one is correct with no errors. So we need to say which option is correct with no errors. All right. And if we were to select the correct option, right? And then once again, we will say option two is the correct one. And our error, the one error that we have identified in option one, is the state abbreviation. The state abbreviation needs to be capitalized. Both of the two letters needs to be capitalized. It should not be in lower cases. So number two again. So well done. All right. The next one, we need to fix two errors. So we need to say which one is correct. All right. So option two is correct again. Right? And the two errors that we have identified in option one is Mrs. After Mrs. Since Mrs. is it is shortened or abbreviated, we need to put our period after Mrs. So we need to select the correct one and then identify the errors in the other option. All right, and if we were to choose the correct option, then yes, again, option two is correct. And if we were to identify our two errors within, let's say, option one, and then we see it by and, there's an error because and needs to be lowercase, and then Mrs., you need to put a period after Mrs., right? Because it is abbreviated. So option two is correct. All right, and if we were to choose the correct option with no errors, right, that we need to do, no errors that we need to fix, we will choose option two, which is again to show that there's no errors, right? And which means that option one, there are quite a few errors, starting with doctor. Doctor needs to start with a capital letter D for doctor. And also with the street address, I think that is drive, needs to start with a capital letter. All right. We said option two is correct. All right, let's do the last one and then we are done for the day. We need to select the correct one. Option two is correct or option one is correct. Which one is correct with no errors? All right, and if we were to choose the correct option, right, with no errors, no punctuation errors, right, nothing wrong, we will go with option two. The two errors that we find in option one is next to road, we don't have a period, and west needs to be capitalized. West for the city west, for example. All right, then if we were to choose the correct one, we will choose option two again. And our one error that we have identified in option one is in the third line by our state abbreviation. Remember, a state abbreviation needs to be capitalized. All right, so this is now the end of our lesson on addresses and formatting addresses, right? We need to keep the steps in mind when writing an address, the recipient's name, the street address. The third line is to write the city, comma, state abbreviation, both needs to be capitalized as well as our zip code. All right, so this is the end of our lesson. Grade 4, thank you very much for joining the class, and I really hope that you're going to have a good evening further. Goodbye.